your host, Cain Stevens. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cain Stevens Super Show, the super show in all the land, I'd hope. I'm your host, Cain Stevens, and we're back at it, everybody. Can you believe it? I've got another awesome guest, another awesome show. I've actually been on their podcast. I've talked to Jack. You guys have seen Jack on a couple different things, but I have the other half. Some would even argue the better half of their podcast, but and I don't mean that in any bad way whatsoever. But I really enjoyed being on their podcast. So, with that being said, I have my guest, Kenyetta Edwards. Everybody, let's give her a round of applause.
Yay, me. Okay.
Welcome to the show, Kenyetta. How are you?
I'm well, Cain. Thank you for having me. It's good to be able to sit and talk with you again. We had a great time
We did.
with you previously on ours, so I'm looking forward to this very much.
I feel, I was talking to you before this. I kind of feel like a jackass a little bit because I'm going to be honest with you. I think that I butchered your name at least 1,000 times. I called you Kenyetta, and there's an obvious E there. It's Kenyetta, everybody. So don't be ridiculous like me. Actually read it out and spell it out and all that stuff, and you'll get it. So I'm glad that I didn't butcher it this time, and I hope that I don't butcher it throughout. I don't think I will. I think I've got it down.
I have faith in you. And just to clarify, it can be spelled either way. I've known people who spell it the same way I do, and people that spell with the A. And from what I understand, I don't know how true it is. I think it's just from word of mouth. Women who have the name have my version and men have Kenyatta, but I've seen it both ways.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I've seen it K-I-N at the beginning. So I've seen different varieties of it over the years, but it's a unique name, but it's not as hard as a lot of people make it out to be when they see it. Like I go to like doctor's offices for the first time or the pharmacy or something, and I can see them struggling when they look at it. And they look like stricken, like, I don't want to mess this up. And I'll save them like, it's Kenyetta. Oh, okay. Or they'll say it right, and they're like, did I get it right? I was like, yes, you did. Thank you. So I'm used to
I
it.
had a friend named Jarrell growing up, and I can remember every single teacher would butcher this name, right? They'd call him Gerald. And it was just like, to me, being his friend, it just seemed like it was such an easy name. Like it's even spelled like Jarrell. But it's funny how people do, like me, my name's Cain. And what drives me nuts is like people will instantly ask me like, "Oh, you mean like the wrestler?" And I'm like, "No, I mean not the be, but like it's like one of the oldest names in the Bible. I mean, it's
Right.
it
Like
wasn't
that.
even biblical growing up, you know,
That's what I'm saying. It's the other guy, the brother in the Bible, that did the thing. So
the
yeah.
bad guy. I know my parents are so strange. Like what a couple of wild hippies or something. Like they're dialing through names. They skip over Bob and Mike, and they're like, yeah, that we're gonna arrive on this one, Cain. Like how strange, but it was all right for me growing up. I always thought it was weird. Maybe I wanted to be like a Frank or a Pete or something growing up. I don't know.
Well, I think there's something to be said to have an uncommon name.
Yeah.
I mean, I there was somebody I used to work with like years ago, and I would, after we both quit working at the place, I would run into her like every blue moon. She would always call me Karen.
Yeah.
I'm like, that isn't even remotely. And then, after, the current connotation of a Karen, I'm like doubly disturbed that you still think I'm a Karen.
It's like when the immigrants would come and they would have these complex names just to the people there, and they would give them like, okay, you're Andy now, or something ridiculous like that.
Well, that's interesting you bring that up, because I don't know if you've heard me talk about this, well, when you were with us on our show, but I frequent Threads now the last few months because it's a fun little place to be. It's what Twitter was before it became a toxic waste dump.
Yeah.
And as per every other social place, there's always somebody that shares some good little tidbits. And from what they were talking about and studied and things that they read, that didn't happen at Ellis Island.
Oh,
People weren't given new names.
okay.
A lot of people chose to take
Mm,
easier to pronounce names. So, like that scene that you see in The Godfather,
yeah.
where he shows up at Ellis Island and the guy's like, Vito with Corleone. And I'm like, everybody's like, no, that's not it. And the kid's like, what, 9? He's like, fine, whatever you say. He didn't understand English. He's like, whatever. Yeah, that doesn't, from what this person was saying, that did not happen. If someone got a different name, it's because they chose to get a different name just to make it easier for themselves.
What's good?
So,
Some white jerk didn't just give him like a like a randomized
right.
name. Like that actually makes me feel a lot better knowing that the history is a little better than that, right? Because we kind of lose history a little bit at a time, and then with social media, like we just completely lose it now. Like I watch everything I learn now is on TikTok, and it's like TikTok is good and bad all in the same. I don't even bother with Twitter or X or whatever the heck it is
Hmm.
anymore. I never really dug it all that much. But I think what you're saying is correct. Like watching threads and stuff like what it used to be would be great. Like I love going to the comments section, which is awful because that's like where the most toxicity is in all the.
Hmm.
But it's like it's the Michael Jackson meme, right? It's grab your popcorn, sit there, and we're gonna dial into these awful comments, and we're gonna start typing something terrible out, and then we'll delete it a few hundred times. Do you do that, or do you actually send the comments sometimes?
I've gotten better at giving myself a few seconds before I hit send. And especially on threads, because you got your character limit per post.
Mm,
And sometimes when I put my own posts in there, I don't care how long it takes. I'll do like 5, 6 posts. But when I'm responding, I try to keep it one post at a time. So I'll stop and I'll start, abbreviating stuff and putting an ampersand instead of spelling out and things like that. As I do it, I'm reading, I'm like, I don't need to say all this. It's too much.
yeah.
So, and I try to avoid those pitfalls that I see other people get into. Like they get dragged into useless back and forths, and you see a comment from someone that's obviously a troll. They're just in there to cause chaos, and I'm like, I'm not bothering with them. And I tell Jack on occasion, I was like, I've said such and such to somebody that said something real ignorant, and they got irritated with me and blocked me. I'm like, I've had a successful day. I got blocked. So
It's a good day when you get blocked by a troll or somebody on there. I
yes.
just I can't stand them. They're like the lowest life form. It really came out during COVID. I know this is kind of a strange like opening, but that's what this show can be that way. And I just like talking to you anyway. But when COVID was going on, it was the worst. I mean, like the bathroom medical professionals, who are sitting there in the toilet, were typing out all of their dissertations on what COVID was. And it was just the worst. Like I just wanted to run outside and like put my arms out in like a clothesline fashion and just hope that I mowed a bunch of people down. It pissed me off so much.
It really did. It was absolutely aggravating, and it was adding nothing to the situation because you already had billions of people all over the world anxious already because of the uncertainty of this. How do you catch it? How much distance is too much, or how much is enough, or things like that. And then, like you said, you had these armchair physicians saying, well, all you have to do is go out and stand out in the sunlight for 12 minutes every morning. What?
We had our president telling us to drink bleach, and I mean, not that we want to go there, but I'm just like, yeah, you talk about the what WTF from your show. I mean, there was like an entire couple years of just WTFs everywhere. Like, what planet are we on?
Every year. This is the same guy that, when did we have that last big eclipse? 2018, 70, somewhere in there, where he's the one that went out on the balcony at the White House and looked up.
Oh man,
I
then
was
these are
like,
people leading our country. It's
right.
fantastic. It's like, and now we have a guy who's basically Weekend at Bernie's. Like there's a puppeteer behind him. He's got his thumb up his butt. He kind of like prompts him now and then. Ah, ah.
I mean, this is a struggle this year. It really is. And I don't want to get too far into it, but it's gonna be a struggle. I already know my position is been pretty much cemented for a while now, but it is a distasteful decision nonetheless, but it's necessary
Yeah.
because reasons. So that's as much as I'll say. So
That's all she'll say about that. So let's get on to let's talk about why you podcast. You're a fellow podcaster. Like I've mentioned before, you're one half of the Kenyetta and Jack Save the World podcast. Tell me why you got into podcasting and what you love about it, and some of the struggles you've had with podcasting.
I got into it really on a whim because, as you probably know from talking to Jack previously, he started one several months, like in the fall of 2021, and his was called Musings of an ADD Mind. And he had just been recently clinically diagnosed as ADD. And so he's probably told you, the theme of his show and his goal, and that he did a lot of interviews talking about people learning about things of that nature. And he asked me to be one of his guests on one episode. I said, sure. And mind you, I think at that point we had been friends on Facebook for maybe 3 or 4 years. Don't quote me. You might have to ask him because I'm not good with time. So it had been some years though since we had, cross paths again on Facebook because we went to uh, school together, grade school together for a certain amount of years. So it was, years passed, and as they do, you start finding people you haven't talked to in 20-some years, and he happened to be one of them. So we found out just from like posting back and forth, we had a lot of mindsets in common. And so when I guested on his show, we got started talking about, some of the things we had in common, and mostly about growing up Air Force brats. And we decided, and some other people who listened to it thought, y'all have some really good chemistry. Y'all hit it off. You go back and forth. There's a good flow and conversation between you guys. And our running joke was, as much as we talk about politics and things in the world, we have all the answers. And so we're going to solve them, and we're going to try to save the world. And that's where the name of the show came from, is Kenyetta and Jack Save the World, which obviously is tongue in cheek because we know doggone well we're not saving jack doobly squat, but we love talking about it, and we love learning new things, and we love, for everybody that's listening, we love educating them. So that's the biggest reason I got into it. I like talking, and I like having those kinds of conversations with people, not necessarily echo chamber conversations, but someone that can offer me a different perspective and vice versa. And plus I just talk a lot, so that
Kind of
helps.
helps, right? It's part of it. If you already talk a lot, like for me, it feels weird sometimes, like doing these in my basement, my studio that I built, and all of this, and talking to myself constantly, like doing commercials and doing like different voices with myself. You've got to be a certain amount of insane to do this, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm. And there is something to that. I mean, they say, what's the joke? You're in trouble if you argue with yourself and you lose.
I lose
Like
all the time.
I'm like, I think it would be better perhaps to converse with someone, and I'll feel better if I lose that particular debate. But like I said, conversations with Jack have never necessarily been about debates or anything like that. And then the guests that we've had, like yourself and other folks, we both, I think, can say with a certain amount of certainty that we both have been vastly enriched by our encounters with other folks. So
Yeah.
I enjoy it. I really do. And it's, believe it or not, as much as I talk, it was mostly with people that I knew. I've gotten so much better actually conversing with just people in general.
Yeah.
I don't mind small talk with people in line at the grocery store, things like that. I can actually go out and see somebody and say, hey, good morning, how are you? Things like that. And it doesn't feel awkward to me anymore. So
Right.
that's been an unexpected benefit, honestly.
It
So
is.
I I,
It actually
I
does
enjoy
make
it.
you better in real life. Like I was walking the other day, and out of nowhere, I always have my earbuds in, and this old guy approached me from his mailbox, and of course I take my headphones out, and
Mhm.
he's asking me about my day, and I tell him about, and pretty soon I tell him like he wants to know why I'm walking, and I told him like I've got heart issues. I just try to get a little cardio in when I can, and this guy hugged me, and it was like for like once in my life, it wasn't like I used to be a real big drunk hugger, but like not like a sober hugger of strangers, but I just went all in on it, man. I mean, I hugged him like he was my actual grandpa, and we had a moment there in the neighborhood. And I'm like, the only reason this happens because I talk to so many people now. Like that has to be it. Because people like, I don't know. I'm not antisocial, but I'm the type of guy like I'll dive into an aisle if I know a bunch of people, and I know someone everywhere I go, which annoys my kids. Like if I see someone from school, I will like at Walmart, I will dive off into the weirdest aisles. You know, I'll hide in the underwear rack of whatever it takes to get away. That's so awful of me. And it's not them, it absolutely is me. But podcasting has made me better. I know what you like when I was talking to you guys on your podcast, what I noticed is you guys are a lot like you guys like what do I want to say here? You guys like TV, you guys like music. You and I kind of bonded on like the fact that we love horror movies together. Steve,
Mhm.
we're gonna get into that here in a little bit. But one thing I want to do right now, there's a portion of your show called the WTF portion of your show, and so we're
Mhm.
gonna do a special WTF here, you and I, because you're gonna save my podcast here today, like Jack did. So let's do a WTF, and I mean I think that I have a pretty good idea of what you're gonna say because we kind of covered this on your show, but now I want to cover it again. Let's talk about Sean P. Diddy Combs, that son of a gun, that dirty guy. What the heck is he doing, man?
Mm. As you mentioned, we talked about it when you came on our show, and I said it then, and I'll say it again. I said it then. Whatever she said he did that shit.
Yeah.
And there was no pausing. There was no maybe no. I believed her, and I believed he was up to dirty things with at least her. And then, for him to have done all the smack talking that he did, even though he paid her within 48 hours, he's still talking about something. I mean, listen, I didn't do anything wrong. Sure, you didn't.
Yeah.
Okay. And then to have this come out and have it to be some of the absolutely most heinous stuff I have ever seen in I don't know when. And to know that he had absolutely no compunction doing that in the middle of a hotel hallway. And if he did it there, who knows what he was doing when there was no one else that could see.
Right.
And who knows how many other women. And there's been other women that have come out since. The mother of his oldest son has come out and said some things. The mother of three of his other children, who's deceased now, unfortunately. There's always been stories about her. Um, and I'm like, there's no bottom to what he's done. We're gonna even what we've just been hearing the last week, we're gonna hear more, and it's just gonna get worse and worse and worse. And I'm like I told you guys when you were on, I'm convinced that whoever has been protecting him and allowing him to do this stuff for years with impunity has finally decided, and now it's just tumbling in on it, and I'm here for it.
I am too. It's watching him do that on camera to his lady and then the fact that he came on and then tried to apologize, but really he's just apologizing to not to her. He's apologizing to the fans and the people. Like you should be apologizing to her. You should be counting your blessings, while you can. And he's a monster, man. And it's fine. We said it. Cat Williams said it. Cat Williams, what a model American. Cat Williams comes out and says, you know what? He said that the whistle blowing is going to happen, and all of these celebrities are going down, and it is right. I mean, he said it from the top, and everybody's like, Cat Williams is nuts. He says all these crazy things. No, Cat Williams knew what was going on. He's been around it, and he said it's finally going to come to light.
I I felt that way too. Not just necessarily in celebrity world, but just in varying degrees across all aspects of our society.
Hmm.
There's reckonings on multiple levels,
Yeah.
like all over the place. And it's just, I don't mean to be like conspiracy theory. I hear too much of it as it is, but it just feels like we're finally entering the season where folks are just fed up with covering up and justifying other people's horrible behavior. And whether it be a celebrity or whether it be, oh, I don't know, a country's government, who knows? Or anything in between. Now it's starting to be like, nah, we're not doing that anymore. Because by and large, no matter, to me, in my opinion, no matter how much horrible stuff we see and how many shitty people cross our viewpoint on a regular basis, I think far more of us are decent people who are just trying to get by than not.
Right.
And I think a lot of us are just, in some regard, some way or another, we're just fed up. We're like, nah, we're sick of this.
Yeah,
Stuff
we've
has to
had it.
happen.
We're tired of them getting away with it just because they're
Mhm,
famous. Like we can't get away with it, and we shouldn't get away with it. It's not right. But these people are being paraded around like they're gods, like they're nobody. They're nothing more. They just have money. They fell into success, be it luck, be it whatever happened. But it does, they should not be above the law. And the thing
mhm,
is, like I was watching the other day, I went back and I watched. It was the Tupac and Biggie documentary where like the detective was telling his side of the story,
mhm,
detective who was on this case, and talking about all the discrepancies and saying that Keefe D, the Crip,
mhm,
came out later and tried to say that he was hired by P Diddy to kill
mhm,
Tupac. I mean that does not shock me at all. I mean we all wondered anyway at the time. I mean that was one of the defining moments in my life as a kid. I was super huge into rap at that time, and these are my heroes. And I can remember where I was when I found out that Tupac had been gunned down, and I was pulling for him. I was sad. I mean, I was literally listening to him in my Discman, walking around, and then we found out that he died, and we were crushed, right? And it's just like they never knew who did it. Like, I mean, a high profile deal like that. I mean, it was wild. I mean, here's Tupac and the entourage beating the crap out of this guy in the casino, and so everybody
mhm.
just assumed, well, that guy did it. But it's just like, man, that story is so bizarre. And then I begin to wonder, did P Diddy kill? And this is all allegedly, of course, because I don't want the team of lawyers to come crashing down on me,
Mhm.
because I am my lawyer, so they'll win. But allegedly, did P Diddy Combs also kill Notorious B.I.G. to come
Mm.
out on top? Do you think?
I don't know. I think excuse me for bouncing up in my and down. My
No,
chair's
you.
funky. Um, I think I might have mentioned this when you were on. What I had heard was at some point Diddy supposedly said to somebody that he felt like Biggie would be more valuable dead than alive. And I think Biggie was, I don't know that he was on his way out the door from Bad Boy, but I think he was just starting to maybe evolve and starting, maybe was trying to eventually break free of Puff and Bad Boy, because you've heard about the stories about Bad Boy and how Diddy has done his artists and things like that, and I think he might have within a year, a couple of years, or relatively soon, I think he would have found a way to get out from under him. So,
Here's some fantasy booking on our end. Say everybody lives and Biggie leaves and he goes to Death Row Records and he cuts the biggest diss albums of all time, and it's all I mean, like, oh my gosh, this is like a wet dream for me because I loved Death Row so much, and I don't know why I connected with it because I wasn't living that lifestyle by any means here in the Midwest. But I'll just say, man, would that have been something like if he had lived another couple years and just said, screw this guy, I'm tired of his crap. Suge signs him, okay, he doesn't go to jail, all this stuff happens, then they've got, oh my gosh, like I can only imagine the diss tracks that would have came through that.
I it I I can and I can't because I remember the diss tracks that went back and forth between Dre and Cube when he left NWA and uh their record company. And uh for the record, as far as diss tracks go, No Vaseline is up there for me because Cube went in and, as the kids say, he ate and left no crumbs. And that was back in, 90s ish. And now, as you probably heard in the last couple weeks, we've had another big rap beef,
Right.
which I thought is really interesting that it has gotten as much traction as it has outside of the entertainment and music spheres. And I'm like, if that isn't another indication of how relevant hip hop culture has become, I don't know what is, but that would have been interesting to hear. A matter of fact, it would have been breaking news had Christopher Wallace, popped up and said, "Yeah, I'm done with Bad Boy. I'm gonna go over here and work with Suge, and we're gonna see what happens." I've been like, "What?" Like there would have been commotion everywhere.
Meanwhile, he probably gets signed like Snoop did to Cash Money and ends up with with Master P, right? That's what really would have happened.
That would have been something too. Doggone it, I haven't heard from Master P in a minute, though, for real.
Make him say, "Oh."
I mean, they had a streak, his company and his artists and stuff, which was a lot of his brothers and such, but they definitely had a streak in there for some years. So I ain't mad at him. But
Yeah.
he's been quiet. So
So who's winning in your eyes? Is Drake winning or is Kendrick winning? Like who's on the top of this one? And I also, by before you answer that, I agree with you. No Vaseline is at the top of the heap. I mean, not there's no one even close to that diss track. Nobody.
Ether, Ether was good. I'm not a big Nas fan. Don't nobody come for me, please. I like him, but Ether was okay for me. No Vaseline is up there, but really, before Drake versus Kendrick, it was Hit 'Em Up for me. Like I can't remember who I was talking to about it. Is another friend that we have on as a guest quite a bit. And he used to be in that scene. He's a music producer now, but he does stuff mostly for like TV shows and things like that. But he was in the scene heavy like in the 90s. And we were talking about it, and I'm like, I can literally see Pac on the mic recording Hit 'Em Up, and I can see him spitting, like physically spitting on the mic. That you can hear it in that song, how much rage he had, talking smack about Biggie and everybody over there. It was wild. To this day, if I'm feeling extra angry about something, I just throw on Hit 'Em Up. I'm like, I feel you, Pac.
It was the angriest song, man. I mean, it blew my mind as it came out. I mean, I can that's another thing I can remember when I was sitting when I first heard that song
Mhm.
in that track, and I was just like, man, like there's no response after that. Like, I mean, he shredded everybody. There was nothing after that. Just drop the mic, walk away. It's over with.
He really did. He really did. And I'm to this day, I am not mad at it, honestly. So, and
Well, it's
then to hear, ooh,
no, no.
sorry. Well, to hear people, talking about this current, or this most recent rap beef, to hear people talk about they don't understand it and it sounds really immature. Two grown men going back and forth. I'm like, you just told everybody you don't understand anything about hip hop because beef between rappers is as old as hip hop itself. So you may as well just stop talking because you don't know what you're saying. If you're saying this is immature, this is how it's done. It's how
Right.
it's done.
So
So,
here's a wild conspiracy theory for you. Do you
mhm.
believe what I believe that Jay-Z and Beyonce are actually reptilian creatures from another planet, and that maybe they consumed Beyonce after Destiny's Child, and now they're taking over the world a little bit at a time? Do you believe that? Because I do.
I do. I also believe that they are obviously members of Illuminati. And they are slowly recruiting um quietly members to replenish the ranks, within the next 10 to 12 years, give or take. So
Right.
yes, I believe 100%.
I swear to you, man. Like I look at Beyonce and I look at like how she was in Destiny's Child, and right, and she kind of had that it factors. You knew she was David Lee Roth. You knew
Hmm.
she was gonna blast out of there like a rocket. But then when she got together with Jay-Z, she changed, and she started doing all these strange things. And that, I mean, this country album is a prime prime example to me. And I don't hate it. I've listened to it. I mean, for another podcast that I'm doing, and I hope to have you on that one too. It's a music podcast. Um, you know, we've talked about it. I don't mind artists transcending and trying to do different things, but man, there's just this the strangest change in her has gone on ever since she's been with that man, and it's made me think that they're both like either like out of this world, like devilish figures, like Bohemian Grove type stuff, or they're reptilian aliens.
I mean, I can get with you on watching her evolution ever since well the public knew that she was with him, especially when she did Crazy in Love. You could obviously you could see it there, and they were dating then, but we didn't quite know for sure. But I think for her, how can I sum it up? Because I'm not an Uber fan. I like her stuff, but I have to be in the mood for her stuff. Um, and there's been like, to me, there's been like big sparks of what I consider like big sparks of her talent, her songs over the years. So I mean, I've followed her. I'm not hating on her, but I'm not a Uber fan. I'm not a stan or anything remotely like that. But what I think it is that when she got with him, that was probably a point in her life where she was just starting to evolve and open up. And
Right.
she probably already had a lot of these ideas in mind where she wanted to go eventually. And I'm not mad at the Cowboy Carter at all.
Right.
Just to be clear, I wore that little album out, like especially like 4 or 5 songs just went on repeat. So she has an uncanny ability, I think, to relate to so many people across the board in so many different ways without specifically telling anybody exactly who she is. That's her appeal. And
Right.
I dig it. I dig the whole process. I think it's clever as heck. And she's a hell of an entertainer. And that's the truth about it. And I don't, and anybody that spends time, trying to drag the woman or her, Jay-Z or their, or whatever the case may be, it's a lot of wasted energy because you cannot like her all day long and also acknowledge that she's one of the biggest entertainers we've got right now, period. No question.
I was
So,
in the search party for him. I thought for a while, truly, I thought we were going to have another Bobby and Whitney type thing, right? Because I'm a huge Bobby Brown fan. Like I have been since I was a kid. I stole my sister's tape from as young as I can remember, and I wore out Bobby Brown. And I've always loved it, but I've always kind of known he's not that good of a guy either. So it's like here I am spitting at P Diddy, but Bobby Brown wasn't the best either, and we lost Whitney because of some foolish who knows. I mean, yeah, a lot of it was on her own accord, but man, I just if maybe do you think that if he hadn't have gotten with her, Whitney would still be alive today and be the greatest vocalist of all time?
I think her issues started long before she ever met Bobby Brown.
Yeah.
Um, because I went back, there was been quite a few documentaries about Whitney since she passed. I'm trying to think of the one I think it's just called Whitney. It was on Hulu for a while. And it's the one where they managed to talk to um like her uncles and her mother and a lot of other people that she was close to, including Robin. And a lot of them, from putting it together, you could tell from an early age she was under a lot of pressure to be a certain kind of person. And who she actually was, she was pressured not to be everything that she was. And I think had she been allowed to do that, she would not have succumbed to her own demons and in turn had that amplified by getting with someone like Bobby Brown.
Yeah. You can't put it all on Bobby, and I'm sure
No.
I'm sure Bobby has a lot of regret for it all. I mean, I've
Mhm.
seen interviews with it. He looks genuine. It's hard with these celebrities because we don't get a chance to hang out with them personally. I mean, I haven't hung out with R. Kelly. I don't know what he's feeling, where he's at, but I sometimes I wonder about him. But but these celebrities, I mean, they do the darndest things, just like with Bill Cosby, and kids do the darndest things. Then we find out that, well, Bill was doing the darndest things as well.
Mhm.
And what's crazy about Bill Cosby too? I know we're kind of going on a tangent here, but we're talking about celebrities. I like bringing this type of stuff up to my guests. Is Bill Cosby, for example? I talked to a comedian not too long ago who was like, pretty soon it's going to be okay to kind of like bring those Bill Cosby records back out because they were so good, and not necessarily celebrate the man and what he did, but just sit and celebrate the body of work for a second. And you gotta recognize that. I mean, I own I swear to you, every single Bill Cosby out because I hit the thrift stores and all that, and when it
Mhm.
all went down, you could literally buy like every single one for like a quarter a piece. And so I snatched those up. I listened to them, and it really does put on a clinic for comedians and everybody on how to be funny and how to be animated. But man, it's just like, but Bill, you were doing all this crazy stuff, man. Why do they let us down so much? Why can't we have good, wholesome people? Do you have to be a bad person to be a celebrity?
I don't know if it's a bad person, but you do. I think a lot of it has to do with when certain kinds of people hit their apex, when they have achieved a certain level of stardom that they never imagined, that shit goes right to their head.
Right,
And just like with Diddy, they get a whole lot of room to indulge some less than savory pastimes, and I'm putting that mildly. And they do it, and they continue to do it because no one stops them. They continue and they continue until they can't anymore. And
right.
whether or not that reckoning comes now or 5 years from now, or in Cosby's case, when he's like 70 something years old, it's gonna come.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine being in that mindset doing the stuff that they've done and never once thinking it's gonna come back on me. I don't know if that's just part of my inherent anxiety, because sometimes I feel awful, if I've inadvertently walked out of the grocery store with something at the bottom of my cart and I forgot. I'm like, oh my God. That's how I feel. I can't imagine doing some of the stuff these guys have had and not have any crisis of conscience whatsoever.
Right.
It's wild to me. It just is. And it's hard to, like, for Cosby example, it's hard to listen to his stuff now and not consider what he may have been thinking of when he said some of it. It's so, and I hate it. It's the same way I feel about R. Kelly and listening to his stuff. And even though Diddy only showed up in a relative handful of artists' stuff that he produced, even listening to stuff that came out of Bad Boy, it's just like kind of wince inducing. And it's not fair because he's turned over ownership of, those masters to them now. I think he saw this coming. That's why he did it, but that doesn't make him a good guy. But even it just now that you're relating it and you realize this is just all a result of them not just being human, but just being fatally flawed and having no people really to call them out and rein them in and try to get them to understand. It's like, you can't do this. You can have all the money and fame in the world, you just can't do it. There was nobody there to either tell them or nobody that they would actually listen to. So they are in hells of their own making. And mm, I just feel sorry for all the collateral damage that they have left in their wake. So,
And for the record, as I kind of rewind this all in my mind as we're talking, just to be clear, I know that I've mentioned a lot of African American celebrities, but I want to be clear that there are endless white, okay, Hispanic, every single race. Okay, all of them have their demons, all of them have their problems. So the ones that we brought up, yes, we did bring up African American celebrities, but they are not the only ones doing bad things, everybody. In Hollywood, I mean, let's talk about we could talk about Harvey Weinstein. Pretty soon, we're gonna find out after Taylor Swift cuts a rap album next. I'm sure we're gonna see the demons come out of her. And so, I just don't want you to think that this is a roasting of the African American culture. It is not. But I appreciate you talking to me about it. Um, you know, I would be remiss if I didn't mention some of my sponsors. So right now we're going to take a quick break and we're going to enjoy the new and improved commercial from the Elegant Sasquatch.
Hey there, human friend. Are you tired of your beard looking like a bird's nest after a windstorm?
Whoa, what? Who's there?
It's just me, your friendly neighborhood Sasquatch. I couldn't help but notice your, rustic beard situation.
Right? Thanks for pointing that out, Bigfoot. But what can I do about it?
Fear not, my follicle challenge friend. Introducing the Elegant Sasquatch Grooming Company. We specialize in grooming products that'll make your beard as majestic as a redwood tree.
Elegant Sasquatch? Sounds fancy. What do they have?
We've got everything a discerning Sasquatch or human needs to keep their facial foliage in top condition. Beard washes to cleanse away the forest grime, beard balms to tame those wild whiskers, beard oils to nourish and hydrate, and beard butters to make it as soft as a bunny's fur.
Wow, that's quite the lineup. Why should I choose the Elegant Sasquatch, though?
Because, my friend, we believe in sophistication for our outer beast. Just because you're a Sasquatch or a human doesn't mean you can't be classy.
I never thought I'd hear a Sasquatch talk about sophistication. All right, you've convinced me. Where can I find these products?
Head on over to the elegantsasquatchco.etsy.com and use the code SUPERSHOW to save 20%. Your beard will thank you.
Thanks, Sasquatch. I'll make sure to check it out. And hey, maybe next time we meet, my beard will be as elegant as yours.
Now that's the spirit, my friend. Happy grooming.
All right, everybody, welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed the new commercial from the Elegant Sasquatch. Always good times with them. Always fun doing commercials with them. I also want to mention Sly Ink Tattoo with Bryce here in Lincoln, Nebraska. Get those tattoos from him. I'll probably do some commercials for them. We have Liberty Contracting for your concrete needs. We also have Roots Music Shop. All you musicians like myself, get out there. I don't know if I said magicians or music, but both of you guys, all you guys, get over there. He's got everything for you. And then I've got another one who said that I could mention them. I met a guy who does barbecue sauce here in town, and it really was fantastic. So he brought me over a few bottles. I traded him some pickles that I do, but it was fantastic. And you know, I just, this guy was so nice to let me do this that I just thought, what the heck, I'm gonna mention it for nothing, you know. So Lil Bill's barbecue sauce here in Lincoln. This guy has the best barbecue sauces I've ever had. So get a hold of him. I think you can find him at some of the stores here in town, also on Facebook. So we're back here with my guest, Kenyetta Edwards, and we're talking everything that we can think of. You know, we've been going hard in the paint on some of this stuff. So Kenyetta, welcome back to the show.
I'm back. I'm excited. It was a great first half. So I'm thinking the second half will be nothing less than spectacular. I predict it. Boom.
I plan on getting weirder with you, as I always do with my guests here in the second half. But before we do that, I'm dying to know your answer. I think that I got off on a tangent, so I want to know who's the clear winner right now between Drake and Kendrick.
Kendrick.
Yeah, I think so too.
And because, as I mentioned, I'm heavy in the threads. That's my new favorite social space, and there were debates rampant in that space over the weeks that the beef was happening. And what I liked seeing was people really trying to understand the skill that comes with being not just a good songwriter, but a good lyricist. And I think Kendrick gave like a master class in that with all the tracks that he dropped. Like Drake would be probably in the middle of recording one and Kendrick drops one. And Drake is in the studio screaming like, he dropped another one. Yes, he did. That's everybody was doing the whole weekend. We like, he dropped another one? I just heard one. No, he dropped another one. Oh, well, let me go listen to it. And it's not just because I'm a Kendrick fan, because my daughter introduced me to him years ago. But I like Drake. I like Drake for exactly what he is. He's a unserious lightweight rapper. He is not on the same level as Kendrick is. He's clever, he's entertaining. Of course, he started as an actor, as everybody knows. So he's entertaining in that way. And you see that a lot of that, like in the videos that he's done. You can see him acting. And I think that's what he's been doing this whole time. He puts on different personas depending on what he wants, the attention for. So when Kendrick mentions that in his very last diss track he did, he mentions, going down to Atlanta and enlisting the help of this rapper, this rapper, this rapper. He's not lying. He's not lying. But to me, that doesn't make Kendrick a bad entertainer. But I don't take him seriously in that regard. And I just like the way Kendrick does his stuff, basically. So
Yeah. Well,
in my opinion, he was the winner.
Drake is kind of like Will Smith as a rapper. Later on, if you ask me, it's not that it's not good. Welcome to Miami and all this stuff. They're great. They're fun. These are good tracks. But I don't take Drake seriously when it comes to being a lyricist, right? Like I feel like if anybody else got into this too, they would absolutely shred Drake apart. Like let's let Eminem get a hold of Drake here for a few rounds, and Drake might fall off the map forever, right? It'd be like a nuke hitting him. So, the jury's out on how this is, is this going to be over, or is this going to continue on for another 10 years?
I mean, it had already been going on for some years before, like here and there. They would take shots at each other here and there, but it really went into high gear, over the course of a week and a half, a little while ago, where they, like I said, they were literally dropping songs back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And that may have been the most intense that either one of them, or the most intense and the most direct that either one of them had been with each other. But, call it what you want, but Kendrick was not off target about a lot of stuff that he said, including what some people consider distasteful. Well, it was. And when there's smoke, fire. So if you ever pay attention to Drake, you've seen what Kendrick has been talking about. Don't act like you haven't. But there are people like in the socials that would literally get in there and try to fight you. Well, Kendrick's only popular because of Drake. What?
No way.
Oh, okay. And then meanwhile, I go on my Apple Music and I stream Kendrick for the next 2 days straight. So, and I forget that they did a song together early on, when Kendrick dropped his major record label debut. He had an album before that, but his major record label debut, he did a duet. He had Drake on one of his songs. It was a pretty good song, but you can tell the difference in the two of them right there in that song early on. So I'm like, I don't understand what the argument is. You can like somebody all day long, but good Lord. It was funny to watch the fans go back and forth. I'm just like, the stuff people think of. Go outside and touch grass. It's gonna be okay.
It's gonna be okay, everybody. Well, something that I do on my show I used to be a paranormal show. I still kind of am. Like when I tell guests about my show, they I don't know why they always tend to just watch this portion of it, and they're like, "Oh, so this is what you do," and they're like, "Well, maybe I won't be a good fit." And I'm like, "No, I talk to everybody, and then I ask them this stuff." So I'm going to ask you right now, Kenyetta, do you believe in ghosts, and have you ever experienced a haunting in your life?
I do believe in ghosts. I remember when you were on ours, I mentioned the one experience I had way back when I was younger in the at church. in the admin building on the church campus. But there's another one that I had thought of. It was maybe a couple of days after we talked to you, and I thought about it. In the house I live in right now, is my dad's. He still owns it. I've been renting for a while. And I don't know if I knew this before and forgot, but I believe the area where this housing development sits was part of a plantation way back when. So I remember, and this is when my daughter still lived here. Occasionally, we adopted a couple of cats back in 2019, and you know how they say animals, especially cats, or like have on both sides
Right.
of the I guess you'd say the spectrum, the living world and the unliving world, the other side. We would sometimes see our cats sit in the living room, and there's a hallway that goes to the front door. We see them sit in the living room, and they would just stare at the front door. This would be at night, and they're just sitting there staring at something in the front door. And me and her would be sitting there in the living room talking about something, and then we look, and the cat would just, "What are you looking at?" And we get up and go look down the hall. Of course, there's nothing. It's just the front door, and there's like two little windows on the side of each side of the door, and we're thinking they're looking at the lights or something. We would catch them doing it often, and then sometimes we were trying to figure out where they are, because when you can't hear a cat, something must be happening. So we'd look for them, and one of them or both would be sitting at the front door on the mat staring. I'm like, first of all, you can't be staring at a ghost, because this house was built brand new 20-something years ago. So it wasn't like someone's been here and got murdered or anything like that. But then I had to think about it. I'm like, if this is indeed a site of a previous plantation, then we may be experiencing some kind of residual energy, because I believe in that. Like where you have actual physical areas where death or trauma or some traumatic situation has happened, I believe that the area retains that kind of energy. So we might not be necessarily seeing ghosts or any physical manifestations, but I think sometimes, especially what they say about cats, they may be feeling where the energy is kind of off sometimes. So call me crazy, but I think the cats are trying to alert us to something. And then naturally, they'll stay at the door for 7 minutes, and then they'll get the zoomies, and they're running around the house for the next 15. So what can you do?
When they're possessed,
Yes.
they become fully possessed, then they go nuts.
Yes, they do.
You're
So I
not
definitely
wrong, and
believe.
you're never going to be called crazy, especially on my show. I have so many people on, and I take everyone's claims seriously, because I believe that everyone has a ghost story in the family in some way, shape, or form. And I think that there's just too much of a coincidence that this could be a bunch of hooey, right? I really do. I don't think that it's just kids' stories. I mean, adults, everyone has a story of some sort. You talk about animals, like my animals at times, even in this house, they'll be here in the studio with me, and pretty soon they'll start growling at something just in the hallway of the studio, and they'll go bolting up the stairs after it, going completely nuts. What could that have possibly been? I'll go run, and they'll go from barking at the bottom of the stairs and growling to then up at the top of the stairs, staring at something in the kitchen, barking and growling. I'll mind you, as a skeptic, you have to be a skeptic even when you're a believer. I'm like, okay, my dogs are yippy dogs. They have very great hearing. They freak out about every single thing. But what were they growling at downstairs and chasing up the stairs? No idea whatsoever. Could be a ghost. The jury's still out. We had a horrible accident here. I mentioned it last episode, right here on my block, where a guy got ejected from a vehicle. Okay. The vehicle rolled. He got thrown over the corner of this house and landed diagonal from my driveway. And it was a horrible scene. Now, when I stare at this scene to this day, I can recall it exactly how it was. I mean, they've washed the blood away. They've done all this stuff. But I wonder to myself, what type of residual energy is there? I mean, this was this guy's literal final resting place. He died. They tried to revive him, but they've now said he never was alive. He
Mm.
died when he landed right in this spot. And I wondered to myself, is this kind of going to be roaming our neighborhood? And so I look, I do a little bit of Facebook sleuthing, and I find out where he is. I find out, see his obituary, and I just feel so sad for this guy. But I wonder, like, I wonder the sadness that this guy's going through, or if there is any sadness with death. I don't know. I know it's kind of a deep thing to think, but this is the stuff that keeps me up at night, is thinking about this.
You're not, I don't think you're off base at all with what you just said. Is there any sadness to death? I think if it's sudden, there's no time to consider. But if it's not sudden, and I think that's the worst way to go when
Oh.
it's something traumatic like that and it takes a long time. I can't even imagine. Like
I'm so
I
shocked
tell
by
people all the time, I want to go quietly and easily.
Yeah.
That's my hope.
Right. I
We're
mean,
all gonna
everyone's got to
go.
go. Everyone's got to go at some point.
Yeah.
The hope is to go quietly in the night, or something, or just go peacefully. But this guy didn't get that. So I start thinking to myself, like, was he hovering above his body as we're all watching it? Like, I ran over there and gave, this lady was asking for masks so they could do CPR for this guy. They're standing around. And I understood what was happening because I was working out, where I was working out. It's working in my garage. And I looked down, and that's when it all dawned on me. Oh my God, this guy is dead. There's blood everywhere. He obviously, I mean, it was a horrible thing. But I stood there in my garage, cried, I mean, sobbed, and like just had my mouth wide open. I mean, you could have had a group of flies go into my mouth. I was just completely like shocked by this scene, and I just thought to myself, like, my mind is reeling, and I'm wondering, like, is this guy like hovering through our neighborhood? Was he like watching his body as it happened? Like, I don't know. I mean, we obviously won't know until we go, but a lot of people have, like, I watch a lot of near death experience videos and stuff like that on YouTube. I don't know if you ever do that. And it's really depressing, but it's almost kind of freeing too, because some of the people who come back, they give you very, very good reports on it. You know what I mean? Like just the feeling of love and oneness, and like being a part of, and that it kind of gives me comfort. Like, hey, maybe it's not so bad. Like, my biggest fear was always as a kid, like, what if there's nothing, right? Like, you go and there's nothing, and then it's black, and you just return to the earth and you're nothing. And that's like, but I don't believe that, and I don't know if you believe that, but that's always been like a massive fear of mine, is from a childhood.
True. I can understand it. I can understand it. And not to go too far off, you talk about like witnessing accidents. I remember 97, 97. For about a year, maybe a year or two. Yeah, about a year or two after I had my daughter, we lived with my parents, and they stayed on base because my dad was still active duty. So where we lived at, there's limited housing on this particular base. So the people that got houses were like upper level NCOs and then officers. So my dad was like an E9 at the time, the highest level enlisted he can get to. So they had a nice little setup, and we just happened to be at like a kind of a cul-de-sac where there was like a little round grassy knoll, it's kind of in the middle of the street, and on it was one of those big metal power transformers. So I remember one Sunday morning, we just got done with breakfast. I think I had put my daughter down like for a nap or something like that. She was playing. I steps outside. Then we had all the houses had like screened-in porches. So I steps outside, enjoying the breeze, whatever, what have you. And I hear this noise from my right side, or the right side somewhere. It sounds like a freight train. And it starts like a whistle, and it just gets louder and louder and faster and closer. And I'm looking like, what the heck? Like, it's not raining. So it's not like a tornado or some, like, what is that? And as soon as I turn my head to see where it could be coming from, all of a sudden I see something hit the transformer box. I'm just standing there staring. And then all of a sudden it clicks and my eyes pop open. I start yelling. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And everybody heard the hit. And my parents came out. Some people down the street, other people down the street were coming out of their houses. It was a small 2-passenger prop plane
Oh no.
that hit. And it turned out that it was 2 women. One of them obviously was a trained pilot. She had many hours under her belt, but they had engine failure and they were going down. And they determined, after they investigated, they determined that because I think there was at the time there was like a private plane runway on the base as well. So that's where she had taken off from. And they lost control or lost one of the engines. She was going down, and apparently they surmised that she knew she was above a housing area, so she was trying to aim towards something that wasn't a house, like an open field. The plane just happened to have hit it. And when I tell you, I have never seen anything like that to this day. Like, all you saw was stuff flying. And I was like, and then I just start yelling, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It didn't click for me at all.
Wow.
At the moment, or even like for hours later, like what did I just see? I might have been the only one that saw it. Everybody else came after the fact.
Mhm.
And so I had, naturally the base police were there and paramedics, and then eventually the NTSB showed up and they asked me questions, and I'm trying to answer them the best I can. I'm like, I saw it, but I didn't see it. If you get my meaning, you know what I mean? How we see traumatic stuff and our mind is like, that's too much. I
Yeah.
feel like that, even to this day, I feel like that's what happened. But
Man.
woof,
Wow.
I know what you mean. It's just, anyway.
No,
I didn't want to go
that's
too far off track.
That's okay. You know,
Mm.
it what's strange though is that you, like myself, we've seen these things, and I've seen other horrific things in my life. But I'm still, it's not the same as watching a movie, right? Like you and
Right.
I are both massive horror movie fans, and we both share a love of Stephen King and all of that, I believe. So I want to ask you now, like, just briefly, give me your top, and I know this is a hard, put right off the bat. Give me your top 3 horror movies, like right off the bat. Just that whatever comes to your mind that you just like are go-tos, I'm going to those immediately.
Cabin in the Woods.
Okay.
I think I mentioned that when you guessed it with us. That's one for me off the rip. That was just the best meta horror movie I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
REC. I can't remember when that came out, the early 2000s, 2010, somewhere there. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't think I know that one.
When you see the title, it says REC, like record,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
with the dot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
That movie is incredible. And I did not know that the American version, which is called Quarantine, I didn't know that was a remake until I did some research. And the Quarantine is the American remake of Rec, which is Spanish. The original is top shelf, nasty. Just, whew. I get every time I watch it since then, I get goosebumps like, dear heavens. Like, Americans they can do horror in a certain way. What other countries, when they get horror right, they get horror right.
Right.
And another example of that is Train to Busan.
Yes. Yes.
Like, that is going to be forever on my top 20 list. I don't care what comes. I don't care what came before it. I don't care what come after. That is going to be in my top 20 list forever.
Man, those are interesting picks. Like me, I mean, I've always been obsessed with Friday the 13th, but for different reasons. I don't even consider it slasher flicks. I don't even consider horror. They're their own genre, right? You know what you're getting into. There's going to be, I mean, for me as a young kid, it was like, okay, I know there's going to be some naked chicks. We're going to be at a camp or something. There's going to be some atrocities. We're going to laugh. And then at the end, there's going to be some crazy twist. And that's what I loved about it. And I don't know if it was like me, like wishing my parents had sent me to like summer camp or something. But, in some morbid way. But I've always been obsessed with Friday the 13th. I anything with the devil terrifies me. So I'd call it religious superstition or whatever. Like watching all of that's, the exorcism of Emily Rose, all that stuff. I literally pee my pants. I clutch my little teddy at night, and I pray to God that I don't get consumed by the evil that's in these movies. So any of those movies, but Stephen King wise, the movie that blew my mind when I was a kid was Pet Cemetery. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, but every time, not that I don't hate the new stuff that they've tried to do. I don't like the changes they made, but I'm not a guy who wants them to remake something completely. I'm glad they took it in a different direction. But that original Pet Cemetery one, and there's something to be said about Ed Furlong in part 2. Okay. Those Pet Cemeteries were great, but that first one was mind blowing. I mean, still to this day, wasn't it?
They took a great risk because, of course, it's the way Stephen King wrote it in the book, but they took a big risk in including a little kid being the antagonist and showing the little kid getting killed. Like, that was a no-no in movies back then, even horror movies. You weren't supposed to show animals or kids getting hurt or killed. That was a no-no. Pet Cemetery was like, no, don't worry about it. We gonna get the pets and the cute little boy with the boy haircut.
Well, and they took it a step further. The dad and the granddad get into a fight at the funeral and start wrestling around together and knock the coffin over. And the kid likes arm. Oh my gosh! Like I was like, as a kid, I was horrified by that scene. Like that was almost scarier than him getting hit by a truck.
Really?
Oh my gosh! Spoiler alert, everyone. The kid dies, right? And he comes down. If you haven't seen it by now, you are never going to see it.
You're never gonna see it. But not just that scene at the funeral, but the mom's sister.
Yeah.
Where they would show the flashbacks to the mom's sister. What was it she had?
Oh man, she had like she was basically like as crooked as a question mark, right? She was like all hunched down and
yeah, she had some kind of some spinal. I can't remember what it was. They said exactly what it was, but I can't remember what it was she was supposed to be supposedly had, and they hid away in the attic like a doggone ghoul or something. I was like, obviously mom is traumatized, not because her sister was afflicted, but how her parents treated her. Like, come on. Stephen King is, if nothing, multi-layered when he describes people's trauma. It can't be just one thing. It's gotta be clowns, or it's gotta be freaking cornfields, or it's gotta be red balloons, or it's gotta be dogs, or everything is horrible in Stephen King world. And I love it.
He's the most descriptive author. I mean, that's why he's my favorite. He's the most descriptive author I've ever, and it's mind numbing sometimes. Like I just have been in the middle of fairy tale. And my only complaint about it is it has taken so many chapters and I'm not a person, I mean, I'm a very patient reader. I'm a very patient movie person, but it took so much description to get to the meat of what was really going on. It was like, I almost think Stephen King Stephen King'd himself on this one. And it kind of gets in the way of it. So now I kind of took a break from it and I'll go back. But now I'm reading Elevation with my daughters. We started a weird book club together, and they had like 3 of them at the library, so I snatched them all up. And it's a weird story too. It's not your typical Stephen King. It almost reads like thinner, in a way. It almost reads like that. But so I can't wait to. I blasted through. I mean, it's not a long book. I blasted through half the book in like an hour's time today.
Right.
But I'm getting ready. I'll probably have it all gone by tomorrow. But the new Stephen King, I'm not mad at it. Like, I know he has a new set of stories that he's been writing for years that just came out, and I believe it's a set of short stories, isn't it, or something of that nature? And people,
I have it in my cart in Amazon, so I'm going to pick that up next week. I think it's called "You Like It Dark."
That's
the name of it.
Think of the name of it. So before we get you to promote, I know we're running low on time for you. What's your favorite Stephen King book of all time? That's a
The
hard
Stand.
one. And yeah,
It's a toss up between The Stand and the Dark Tower series.
right. The
Mm-hmm.
Gunslinger and the Dark
Mm-hmm.
Tower. Oh my gosh, are freaking masterpieces. They did them wrong on the movie. Like
Mm-hmm.
they got to go revisit that a little bit. But I also like the cheesy Stand movie from back in excuse me, the series from back in the days. I like that, but man, it's cheesy to watch now. I wish they had done better with the new version. So I hope down the line they do these more justice.
I agree about the Stand miniseries, like the one back in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. I think they casted it pretty well, especially Gary Sinise. He's been one of my favorites since. And I had high hopes for the remake, especially when I heard the casting. Like, come on. The actor that they got, Alex Skarsgård for Randall Flagg, I was like, come on. And it went sideways so bad. I was very sad because I had very high hopes for that. So I don't see them touching that one again.
Yeah.
I would. I like the It remake. Again, the 80s one with it's treasured because of the cheese. But I like the remake. That first half better than the second. So I'm holding out hope. Whatever they want to adapt from him next. It's hard to adapt his stuff because, like you said, he goes into so much detail, especially when he fleshes out his characters, and a lot of that gets lost in translation.
Mhm.
So I need them to be very careful. Whoever opts to adapt something next, they need to be careful
And I think
because I'm sick of it.
on your show, I think I mentioned my favorite story of all time from Stephen King is actually the short story, The Man in the Black Suit,
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of reasons. So if you guys haven't read that, I really would, I suggest, especially this day and age, just search that, find it anywhere and read just that short story. And it leaves you gripping. It really does. And that is classic Stephen King, where his descriptions are perfect and they leave you like you can actually feel these characters and the terror in the people involved. So go back and watch that. But that's my favorite.
Now that you say short story, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, go ahead.
You said short stories.
Mhm.
It just brought to mind one that it's always been my dirty little favorite. It's called The Jaunt. Have you heard of it?
I don't know why I cannot think of it at all.
I think you can look. I think it's somewhere online as a standalone story. I remember finding it somewhere because it's in one of his anthologies, either Nightmares or Dreamscapes, one of the anthologies. It's called The Jaunt, Jaunt, and it's a story about um the first teleportation transportation system,
Okay.
and it ends so horribly.
Yeah.
It's so good. I'm like that with that story with you and that one. It gives me the creeps. Even though I read it, I don't know how many times. I'm coming to the end. I'm like, here it comes. And I can, like you, I can see it in my head. Just, he's good for that. He's
It
good
looks
for
like it
that.
was in his 1985 collection, Skeleton Crew.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it was first published in the Twilight Zone magazine. Man, I wish I could get a hold of these killer magazines from back, like from
Mm.
1981. If any listeners out there have any of the Twilight Zone magazine, please give them to me. I'll give you one of my kidneys or trade one of my kids for about 10 of these magazines because I just want that sounds fantastic.
Yes, 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 yes.
So
So,
unfortunately, Kenyetta, all good things must come to an end. I hope to have you on again sometime, but I'm going to give you your time right now because I'm already over time with you. And everybody's time is valuable. So please share with me anything you'd like to promote right now.
well, of course, me and my co-host, Jack Robertson, we continue to do our podcast, Save the World. We drop episodes every Tuesday, new episodes every Tuesday on any of the major podcast platforms. So check us out. And we also have social pages on Facebook and Instagram. Me personally, I'm kind of, as I do, pondering different other ways to fill up time. I recently volunteered to do graphics and social work with a local volunteer community theater group. So that's going to be fun. And I'm pondering either going back to school or starting a blog. I don't know. My mind changes literally every 17 minutes. So we'll find out.
Hopefully all of the above. I look forward to seeing more from you, and I really do hope that you come back on. I wanted to get to some other subjects, but I had such a good time talking about the subjects that we went through. You and I covered, Jack told me this would happen. You and I covered some pretty good ground with each other. So thank you so much for being on the show. It's you are on the legendary guest status in my
Yay.
eyes, and I'm sure the listeners soon. So thank you so much for being on the show.